I've always been the kind of person who likes things a certain way. Some people call it boring, but I call it comfortable. Every Tuesday afternoon, I'd walk into the same small cafe on Main Street, order my usual black coffee, and sit at the corner table near the window. It wasn't anything fancy, just a regular spot where I could work on my laptop without anyone bothering me. The cafe had this warm feeling to it. Old wooden tables, the smell of fresh coffee beans, and soft music playing in the background. The owner, an older gentleman, knew my order by heart. He'd just nod when I walked in and start making my coffee. I liked that. No small talk needed, no awkward conversations. Just me, my coffee, and a few hours of peace. That Tuesday started like any other. I walked in around 2 in the afternoon, gave my usual nod to the owner, and headed straight to my corner table. I set up my laptop, took a sip of my coffee, and started working. The cafe wasn't too busy. A few students studying in one corner, a couple talking quietly near the counter, and an old man reading a newspaper by the door. Then she walked in. I didn't pay much attention at first. People come and go all the time in cafes, but something made me look up. Maybe it was the way she moved, or maybe it was just instinct. She was probably in her early 30s, wearing a simple gray jacket and jeans. Her hair was tied back in a loose ponytail, and she had these incredibly green eyes that seemed to catch the light in a strange way. Here's the thing that struck me as odd. The cafe had at least 5 or 6 empty tables. Tables by the window with better views. Tables near the heater that were warmer. Tables in quieter corners. But she walked straight toward my table and sat down right across from me. I looked up, expecting her to realize her mistake and move. But she didn't. She just sat there, placed her hands on the table, and looked at me. Not in an angry way or a friendly way, just looked. It's like she was studying something interesting. I went back to my laptop, trying to focus on my work, but I could feel her eyes on me. You know that feeling when someone's staring at you? Your skin starts to tingle and you can't concentrate on anything else. That's exactly what was happening. I typed a few words, deleted them, typed again. Nothing made sense because all I could think about was why this stranger was sitting at my table, watching me. 5 minutes passed. Then 10, she didn't order anything. Didn't pull out a phone or a book. Just sat there, completely still, her eyes never leaving my face. It was starting to creep me out. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. I closed my laptop and looked straight at her. "Can I help you with something?" I asked, trying to keep my voice calm even though my heart was beating faster than usual. She tilted her head slightly like a bird examining a strange object. A small smile appeared on her lips, but it wasn't a warm smile. It was the kind of smile that made you feel like she knew something you didn't. "Do I know you?" I tried again, more directly this time. She didn't answer right away. Instead, she just kept looking at me with those green eyes. Then very slowly she spoke. "Not yet," she said. Her voice was soft but clear. "But you will." I felt a chill run down my spine. What kind of answer was that, not yet? What was that supposed to mean? Before I could ask anything else, she stood up. The movement was so sudden it startled me. She reached into her jacket pocket and pulled out a small white business card. She placed it on the table between us right next to my coffee cup. Then without another word, she turned and walked out of the cafe. I sat there frozen, watching her through the window as she disappeared down the street. My hands were shaking slightly. What had just happened? After a moment, I picked up the card. It was completely blank on one side. On the other side, there was just an address and a time. No name, no phone number, no explanation. Just an address in a part of town I barely knew, and below it, written in neat handwriting, 7 p.m. Friday. I turned the card over several times, looking for any other clue, but there was nothing. Just those few words. The address was somewhere across town, in an area I'd only driven through a few times, and Friday was 3 days away. I tried to go back to my work, but it was impossible. My mind kept replaying the encounter. The way she'd walked straight to my table, the way she'd watched me without blinking. Those words, "not yet, but you will," what did she want? Why had she given me this card? And most importantly, who was she? I asked the cafe owner if he'd seen her before. He shrugged and said he couldn't remember every face that came through. The students in the corner hadn't noticed anything. It was like she'd appeared just for me and then vanished. I left the cafe earlier than usual that day. As I walked to my car, I kept looking over my shoulder, half expecting to see those green eyes watching me from somewhere, but the street was normal, People going about their business, cars passing by, nothing unusual. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept the business card on my bedside table, picking it up every now and then to make sure I hadn't imagined it. But it was real. The address was real. Friday was real. I told myself it was probably nothing. Maybe a prank or a case of mistaken identity. Maybe she thought I was someone else. Maybe by Friday she'd realize her mistake and I'd never hear from her again. But deep down I knew that wasn't true. The way she'd looked at me wasn't the look of someone who'd made a mistake. It was the look of someone who knew exactly what they were doing. As I finally drifted off to sleep that night, one thought kept circling in my mind. How did she know I'd be at that cafe? How did she know I'd be sitting at that exact table? And why did it feel like she could see right through me, reading thoughts I didn't even know I had? 3 days until Friday. 3 days until I'd find out what this was all about. Part of me wanted to throw the card away and forget the whole thing. But a bigger part of me, the curious part, the part that needed answers, knew I'd be at that address on Friday at 7 p.m. I just hoped I wouldn't regret it. Wednesday morning came too fast. I'd barely slept, my mind spinning with questions about the mysterious woman and her strange card. I thought about skipping my usual cafe visit, maybe breaking my routine for once. But something pulled me back there like an invisible thread. When I walked in at my usual time, my heart was already racing. I scanned the cafe nervously, looking for that gray jacket, those green eyes. But she wasn't there. Relief washed over me. Maybe it had been a one-time thing. Maybe I'd never see her again. I ordered my coffee and sat down at a different table this time. Not my usual corner spot, but a table near the center of the cafe. If she came back, I wanted to see her coming. I wanted to be ready. I opened my laptop and pretended to work, but really I was watching the door. Every time someone walked in, my stomach jumped. But it was just regular people. Students, workers on their lunch break, elderly couples. I started to relax. Maybe I'd overreacted. Maybe the whole thing was just weird coincidence. Then, about 20 minutes later, I heard the cafe door open. I looked up and there she was, same gray jacket, same ponytail, same unnaturally calm expression. She walked in like she owned the place, her eyes scanning the room. When her gaze landed on me, she smiled. Not a friendly smile. More like a smile that said, "I knew you'd be here." My mouth went dry. I watched as she walked through the cafe and I thought maybe she'd sit somewhere else. Maybe she'd leave me alone today, but no. She walked straight to my table and sat down across from me again. This time I was ready. "Okay, what's going on? Who are you and what do you want?" She folded her hands on the table, completely calm. "You changed your table today. It wasn't a question. It was a statement, like she'd expected it." "Yeah, I did," I said, trying to sound braver than I felt. "What's it to you?" "You thought sitting somewhere else would change things," she continued, ignoring my question. "You thought maybe I wouldn't find you or maybe I'd sit somewhere else." How did she know what I was thinking? It was exactly what had gone through my mind that morning. "Are you following me?" I demanded, my voice rising slightly. A few people in the cafe glanced over at us. She didn't seem bothered by the attention. "I'm not following you. I'm observing you." "That's the same thing." "Not really." She leaned back in her chair, still watching me with that intense gaze. "Following implies I'm tracking your movements randomly. Observing means I'm here with a purpose." "What purpose?" I practically shouted the words, then lowered my voice when I saw more people looking. "What do you want from me?" For the first time, her expression changed. Something softer appeared in her eyes, almost like sadness. "I want to help you remember." "Remember what?" "I don't know you. I've never seen you before Tuesday." She was quiet for a moment, just looking at me. Then she stood up, the same abrupt movement as before. "Friday, 7 p.m., the address is on the card. Everything will make sense then." "Wait, no," I said, standing up too. "You can't just keep showing up and saying cryptic things and then leaving. Tell me what this is about." But she was already walking away. I watched her move toward the door, and that's when I noticed it. She was limping slightly, favoring her left leg. It was subtle, something you might not notice if you weren't paying attention, but I saw it clearly, and it triggered something in my memory, a flash of something from long ago, someone else who walked like that. But the memory was fuzzy, like trying to remember a dream after you've woken up. She walked out the door and disappeared again. I sat back down, my mind racing. Other people in the cafe had gone back to their business, but I felt like my whole world had just tilted sideways. Who was this woman? And why did that limp seem so familiar? I spent the rest of Wednesday in a fog. I couldn't work, couldn't focus on anything. I kept pulling out that business card and staring at the address. I even looked it up online. It was in an industrial area on the other side of town. Old warehouses that had been converted into lofts and art studios. That evening I did something I hadn't done in a long time. I called my mom. "Honey, what a surprise," she said when she answered. "Is everything okay?" "Yeah, Mom, everything's fine," I lied. I wanted to ask you something. Do you remember anyone who used to walk with a limp? Maybe someone from when I was younger?" There was a long pause on the other end. "Why are you asking about this?" "I just saw someone today and it reminded me of something." "I can't remember what." Another pause. Then my mom's voice came back, quieter now. "You're thinking about your sister, aren't you?" "My sister?" The words hit me like a punch to the stomach. I hadn't let myself think about her in years. It was too painful. She'd disappeared 15 years ago. Just vanished one day from the park. I was 13. She was 12. And I'd tried to forget because remembering hurt too much. "She had a limp," my mom continued softly. "From that accident on her bike, remember? She broke her leg and it never quite healed right." I did remember. Suddenly I remembered everything. My little sister, always following me around, always trying to keep up even though her leg hurt. And then one day she was just gone. "Mom, I have to go," I said quickly. "Wait, sweetheart, are you okay? Do you want to talk about—" I hung up. My hands were shaking. "The woman at the cafe. The limp. Could it be?" No, that was impossible. My sister would be 27 now. This woman looked older, more tired. And besides, my sister was gone. The police had looked for years. They'd found nothing but what if. Thursday was torture. I couldn't stop thinking about my sister, about the woman, about that address on the card. I tried to convince myself it was all coincidence. Lots of people have limps. It didn't mean anything, but I knew I was lying to myself. That afternoon, I drove to my childhood home where my mom still lived. I hadn't been there in months. When I walked in, Mom looked surprised but happy. 2 calls and a visit in 2 days. "What's going on?" "I need to see some old photos," I said. "From before, from when she was still here." My mom's face fell. She knew who I meant. "Are you sure that's a good idea?" "Please, Mom, I need to see them." She led me to the attic and pulled out old boxes I'd avoided for 15 years. Inside were photo albums, school papers, drawings, and photos of my sister. I studied her face, trying to see if there was any resemblance to the woman at the cafe. The eyes, maybe. Something about the way she held her head. "Mom, tell me the truth," I said quietly. "What really happened that day?" My mom sat down on an old trunk, suddenly looking very old and very tired. "You know what happened. She went to the park and never came home. But there must have been something. Some clue. Something the police said." Mom was quiet for a long time. Then she reached into one of the boxes and pulled out an old police report. There was one thing. A witness. A homeless man who said he saw a girl matching her description get into a car with a woman. He said she went willingly, like she knew the person. A woman? What woman? They never found out. The man wasn't a reliable witness. He changed his story several times. The police eventually dismissed it. I stared at the report, my mind spinning. A woman. My sister got into a car with a woman. I left my mom's house with more questions than answers. That night I barely slept again. Friday was tomorrow. 7 p.m. I'd be at that address. I had to know the truth, even if that truth terrified me. Friday came with gray skies and a cold wind that cut right through my jacket. I spent the whole day distracted, checking the clock every few minutes. 7 p.m. felt both too far away and too soon. Part of me wanted to know the truth. Another part wanted to run away and never look back. By 5 p.m. I couldn't wait anymore. I got in my car and started driving toward the address on the card. The industrial area was about 30 minutes across town, through parts of the city I rarely visited. Old factories turned into trendy lofts, warehouses converted into art galleries and coffee shops. It was the kind of place young artists moved to because rent was cheap. I arrived at the address around 6 p.m., a full hour early. The building was an old brick warehouse 4 stories tall with large windows. Some of the windows had lights on, others were dark. I sat in my car across the street watching, trying to gather my courage. What was I doing here? This was crazy. For all I knew, I was walking into some kind of trap. The woman could be anyone. A scammer, someone dangerous, someone who'd researched my past and was using it against me. But that limp, those eyes, something deep in my gut told me this was connected to my sister somehow, and I needed to know. At 6:45, I couldn't sit in the car anymore. I got out and walked toward the building. There was a main door with a buzzer system, but it was propped open. I walked inside and found myself in a narrow hallway with concrete floors and exposed pipes on the ceiling. The building had character, as real estate people like to say. To me, it just looked old. I found the unit number from the card, 3rd floor. The elevator was broken, so I took the stairs. Each step echoed in the empty stairwell, making me painfully aware of how alone I was. What if this was a mistake? What if I should have told someone where I was going? Too late now. I reached the 3rd floor and found the door. Unit 304. I stood there for a moment, my hand raised to knock, my heart pounding so loud I could hear it in my ears. Then I knocked. The door opened almost immediately, like she'd been waiting right behind it. It was her. The woman from the cafe. But seeing her up close in better light, I could see details I'd missed before. The thin scar above her left eyebrow. The way her shoulders curved slightly forward, like she'd carried heavy burdens. The tiredness in those green eyes. "You came early," she said. "Not surprised, just stating a fact." I needed answers, I replied. She stepped back, opening the door wider. "Come in." I hesitated, every instinct screaming at me to run. But I'd come this far. I walked inside. The apartment was one large open space with exposed brick walls and high ceilings. But what caught my attention immediately were the walls. They were covered with photographs. Hundreds of them. And as I stepped closer, my blood ran cold. They were all of me. Pictures from when I was a kid playing in my front yard. Photos from high school. Standing outside the building with friends. More recent pictures taken from a distance. Me walking to my car. Me at the cafe. Me at the grocery store. Years and years of surveillance all displayed on these walls like some kind of twisted art gallery. "What is this?" I whispered, backing toward the door. "What the hell is this?" "Please don't be afraid," the woman said, holding up her hands. "I know this looks bad, but there's an explanation." "An explanation? You've been stalking me for years. I'm calling the police." I reached for my phone. "My name is..." She paused, taking a deep breath. "My mother called me Lily. And your sister was my mother." The room started spinning. I grabbed the edge of a table to steady myself. "What did you just say?" "Your sister. She was my mother. That makes you my uncle." I couldn't breathe. The words didn't make sense. My sister would be 27 now. This woman looked at least 30. And my sister had disappeared when she was 12. She couldn't have had a daughter. It was impossible. "You're lying," I managed to say. "My sister disappeared. She was 12 years old. She couldn't have." "She was 12 when she left," Lily said gently. "But she didn't disappear. She ran away." "No, the police looked everywhere." They said, "The police were looking for a kidnapped child. They weren't looking for a girl who left willingly." I slumped into a nearby chair, my legs unable to hold me up anymore. "Tell me everything. From the beginning." Lily sat down across from me in that same position she'd taken at the cafe, watching me carefully like she was still deciding if she could trust me. "My mother ran away with a woman named Catherine," she began. "Catherine was a friend of your family. She'd been around your house a few times. Your sister trusted her. Why would she run away? She was just a kid. She had everything at home." Lily's expression grew darker. She didn't have everything. She had a secret, something she was too ashamed to tell anyone. "What secret?" "Your father." The words hung in the air like poison. I felt sick. "What about him?" "He was hurting her. Had been for a long time. Your mother knew but felt powerless to stop it. Your sister felt trapped. When Catherine offered her a way out, she took it. I wanted to deny it, to say it was impossible. My father had been strict, yes. Sometimes harsh. But he wouldn't. He couldn't have. But even as I tried to reject it, pieces started falling into place. The way my sister had become so quiet in her last year. The way she'd stopped playing, stopped laughing. The way she'd flinch when Dad walked into a room. I'd been too young to understand, too caught up in my own teenage life to notice. "Where did she go?" I asked quietly. "Catherine took her to another state. Helped her build a new life with a new name. My mother lived there for 15 years. She met my father, had me. She tried to be happy. Tried? Some wounds don't heal. She struggled. Depression, anxiety, fear. She never felt safe. But she built a life. And she thought about you every single day. Thought? Past tense. Lily's eyes filled with tears. She passed away 2 years ago. Cancer. The room seemed to close in around me. My sister had been alive all these years, living a different life, thinking about me, and I'd never known. And now she was gone. Really gone, forever. Why didn't she come back? Why didn't she contact me? She wanted to. So many times. But she was ashamed, afraid. What would she say? How would she explain? And as time passed, it got harder and harder. The gap got too big to cross, but she could have tried. I would have understood. I would have helped her. She didn't know that, Lily said softly. Trauma makes you doubt everything, especially the people you love. She convinced herself you'd hate her for leaving, for not trusting you enough to tell you the truth. I put my head in my hands. All these years, all the wondering, the guilt, the pain, and she'd been out there alive, building a life while carrying her own pain. Why are you here now? I asked. Why find me? Because before she died, she told me everything. About you, about her childhood, about why she left. She asked me to find you, to watch you, to see what kind of person you'd become. She wanted to know if you were safe, if you were someone worth knowing. That's why she'd been watching me at the cafe, why she'd taken all these photos over the years. She'd been studying me, trying to understand who I was. And I looked up at her. What did you decide? For the first time, Lily smiled. A real smile, warm and genuine. She would be proud of the person you became. You're kind. You're gentle. You're nothing like your father. I started crying then, years of grief and guilt and confusion pouring out all at once. Lily came and sat next to me, putting a hand on my shoulder. She didn't say anything. Just sat there, this stranger who was also family, sharing my pain. When I finally stopped crying, I asked, "Can you tell me about her?" About her life? Lily nodded. I have so much to show you. We sat in that apartment for hours. Lily brought out box after box of things that had belonged to my sister. Photo albums, journals, letters she'd written but never sent. Each item was a piece of a life I'd never known existed, a parallel story running alongside mine all these years. In the photos, I saw my sister growing up. Teenage pictures where she looked thin and uncertain, like she was still learning to breathe freely. College photos where she looked stronger, more confident. Pictures with friends, with the woman Catherine who'd saved her, with a man who must have been Lily's father. And then pictures holding a baby, looking tired but happy. That baby was Lily. She named me after her favorite flower, Lily explained, showing me a letter, Lily of the Valley. She said they represented the return of happiness after darkness. I read the letters my sister had written to me over the years, birthday letters she'd never sent. Letters about her struggles, her therapy, her slow healing. Letters where she talked about memories we'd shared, asking if I remembered them too. Letters where she apologized over and over for leaving me behind. I wish I could tell you it was your fault, one letter said. I wish I could blame you for not noticing, for not saving me. But you were just a kid too. You didn't know. How could you? I hid it so well. We all did. Reading those words broke something in me and healed something at the same time. All these years I'd carried guilt for not protecting her, for not seeing what was happening. But she didn't blame me. She'd never blamed me. What happened to your father? I asked Lily. I mean your grandfather. My father. He died 5 years ago, Lily said. Heart attack. My mother said she felt relief when she heard. Then guilt for feeling relieved. It's complicated. And my mother? Did she know about any of this? Lily shook her head. No. Your mother thought your sister was gone, just like you did. My mother wanted to spare her the pain of knowing the truth. She thought it would be easier for everyone to believe she'd simply vanished. I thought about my mom, about all the years she'd spent grieving a daughter she thought was dead. Should I tell her the truth now? Would it help or make things worse? There's something else, Lily said, reaching for another box. My mother left something for you. She made me promise to give it to you if I ever found you and decided you were someone worth knowing. She handed me a sealed envelope with my name written on it in handwriting I barely recognized. It had been 15 years, but something about the way the letters curved was familiar. I opened it with shaking hands. Inside was a letter, several pages long, written in my sister's hand. I started reading, and her voice came back to me across all those years. Dear brother, it began. If you're reading this, it means I'm gone. It means Lily found you. It means she decided you were safe, that you were worth knowing. I'm so sorry for leaving you. I'm sorry for all the questions I left unanswered. I'm sorry you had to grow up thinking I was dead or taken, but I need you to understand why I did what I did. The letter went on to explain everything. The details I won't repeat here, about what had happened in our house, why she felt she couldn't tell anyone, why leaving seemed like the only option. She wrote about Catherine, about how this woman had somehow sensed something was wrong and offered help, about the new life she'd built, the person she'd tried to become. I always imagined coming back, she wrote. I'd picture showing up at your door, explaining everything, and you'd understand. You'd forgive me, but as time passed, that fantasy felt more and more impossible. How do you come back from the dead? How do you explain a 15-year absence? So I stayed away, and I'm sorry for that too. The letter ended with a request. Take care of Lily for me. She's all I have left in this world, the best part of me. She's smart and strong and braver than I ever was. She deserves to know her family, the good parts of it. She deserves to know you. Please don't turn her away because of my choices. Please let her in. Love, your sister. I folded the letter carefully and looked at Lily, who was watching me with those familiar green eyes. My sister's eyes. My niece. She asked me to take care of you, I said. But it looks like you've been taking care of yourself pretty well. Lily smiled. I learned from the best. My mother taught me to be independent, to be strong. But she also taught me that family matters. That connection matters. That's why I had to find you. I'm glad you did, I said, and I meant it. Despite the shock, despite the pain of learning the truth, I was grateful. Because sitting here with Lily meant I had a piece of my sister back. Not the way I'd imagined, but something real and tangible. We talked late into the night. Lily told me about her childhood, about growing up knowing she had an uncle she'd never met. She told me about watching me from a distance for the past 2 years, learning my routines, figuring out who I was. It should have felt creepy, but somehow it didn't. She'd been trying to protect herself, making sure I was safe before revealing the truth. Why the cafe? I asked. Why that particular way of approaching me? I needed to see how you'd react to something unusual. My mother taught me to read people, to see beyond what they show on the surface. At the cafe, I could watch you in your natural environment, see how you handled surprise and discomfort. And that limp? Real, I broke my leg when I was 16. It healed, but not quite right. My mother had the same injury. Genetics maybe, or just bad luck. When I realized you'd noticed it at the cafe, I knew you were making the connection, even if you didn't understand it yet. As the night grew later, Lily showed me the rest of the apartment. One wall was dedicated to family history, a timeline she'd created showing both her mother's life and mine, running parallel but separate. Seeing our lives laid out like that was surreal. All the moments we could have shared, all the time we'd lost. What do we do now? I asked. Whatever you want, Lily said. I'm not here to force anything. I just wanted you to know the truth. The rest is up to you. I thought about it, about my life, my routines, my comfortable predictability. All of it seemed less important now. Here was family, real family, standing in front of me. A chance to know my sister through her daughter. A chance to have something I'd lost 15 years ago, even if it was in a different form. I'd like to get to know you, I said, if that's okay. Lily's smile lit up her whole face. I'd like that too. Before I left that night, I had one more question. Should I tell my mother? About your mom, about what really happened? Lily was quiet for a moment. That's your decision. But maybe ask yourself, will it help her or hurt her? Will it bring peace or more pain? It was a question I'd have to think about carefully. The next Tuesday, I walked into the cafe at my usual time. But everything felt different now. The familiar routine that had once brought me comfort now seemed small and limiting. I'd spent years hiding in predictability, avoiding change because change meant risk and risk meant possible pain. But I'd already experienced the worst pain. I'd lost my sister twice, once when she disappeared and again when I learned she'd died. Hiding from life wouldn't protect me from that kind of hurt. Lily was already there, sitting at a table near the window. Not my old corner spot, but somewhere new. She waved when she saw me and I waved back. I got my coffee and sat down across from her in what was becoming our new routine. How are you feeling? She asked. Confused, sad, angry, grateful, all of it at once. She nodded. That's normal. It's a lot to process. Over the next few weeks, Lily and I met regularly, Sometimes at the cafe, sometimes at her apartment, once at my place. We talked about everything. She told me more stories about her mother, and I shared memories of our childhood, the good ones from before everything got dark. I learned that my sister had become a teacher, working with troubled kids. She'd turned her pain into purpose, helping other children who felt trapped and scared. She'd never fully healed, Lily admitted, but she'd learned to live with her scars. She had nightmares until the end, Lily told me one afternoon. But she also had good days, days where she laughed and danced and felt free. Life wasn't perfect, but it was hers. She chose it. The question of whether to tell my mother haunted me. I went back and forth a dozen times. Finally, about a month after meeting Lily, I decided she deserved to know. Not all the details, not the painful parts about why my sister had left, but the fact that she'd been alive, that she'd built a life, that she'd had a daughter. I invited my mother to lunch and brought Lily with me. When we walked into the restaurant together, my mother looked confused, then curious. She studied Lily's face, and I could see the moment when she recognized something familiar in those green eyes. "Mom," I said carefully, "this is Lily. She's your granddaughter." My mother's face went through a series of expressions: confusion, disbelief, hope, fear. "What do you mean?" We sat down and I explained everything as gently as I could. I watched my mother's face as she processed the information. Her daughter had been alive all these years, had lived a whole life without her, had a child, and now was gone, really gone, before they could reunite. The meeting was hard. There were tears, lots of them. My mother wanted to know everything, every detail of her daughter's life. Lily answered what she could, showed photos, shared stories. But some questions had no good answers. "Did she hate me?" my mother asked at one point. "For not protecting her?" "No," Lily said firmly. "She loved you. She understood that you did the best you could in an impossible situation. She never blamed you." That was a kindness simplifying a complicated truth, but it was what my mother needed to hear. In the days that followed, my mother struggled. The grief was fresh all over again, like losing her daughter twice. But slowly she started to find comfort in knowing the truth. In having Lily, a living connection to the daughter she'd lost. The three of us started having weekly dinners together. It was awkward at first, everyone trying to figure out how to be a family when we'd missed so much time. But gradually it got easier. Lily fit into our lives like a piece we hadn't known was missing. My mother showed Lily old family photos, told stories about my sister's childhood. Lily shared memories of her mother, gave us glimpses of the person our sister had become. We